Let's get spooky. This is our station, Boo, where we explore the dark and mysterious corners of the world of horror, and we know that you are dying to listen.
And welcome to the Spooky and Kooky podcast at Earth Station Boo, where we talk all things horror. Introducing our haunted host with the most, we have Lisa.
Hi, everybody.
We have Karen.
What's up?
And I am Shannon. In this episode, we are entering into the grounds of Hill House, and will hopefully be out before dark.
Hey, horrorholics. It's time for the Ghastly Report. Stay tuned for all the fun, spine-tingling news happening in horror today, from new releases to spooky events and so much more. All right, and welcome to the Ghastly Report. So, Lisa, what do we got on the table today?
Okay, on the table, if you guys playing Puppy's Playtime, which is a horror video game, they are releasing chapters 2 and 3 this season. Also, Rick Baker, the one and only one of the gods of special effects, has a book coming out in a couple months.
Ooh.
So it's really great history of special effects, lots of stuff in the backgrounds, his monster creations, and all that good stuff. Also, there is a fantastic new life-size, well, almost life-size, of Beetlejuice from the new Beetlejuice movie action figure coming out.
Cool.
It's not NECA, but it's like Mavco or something like that, but they're just as good as NECA.
Nice.
So it's like really kind of, I saw some of it and it looks really groovy. I'll post it on our group.
Cool.
And that's all I really have.
Speaking of Beetlejuice, it is currently number 1 in the box office. And what is number 2? Speak No Evil, starring James McAvoy. So the top 2 slots are both horror related. So woohoo! And it's only September. And some other little things that I have seen. Violent Night is now on Shudder. So that is exciting stuff. And then an update on Ryan Murphy's miniseries anthology thing that he is doing. He started off with Jeffrey Dahmer, with Evan Peters playing the lead role. This week is actually releasing the 2nd season, which is Lyle and Eric Mendez. And then they have already announced who is starring in the 3rd season, which is going to be about Ed Gein, which is going to be Charlie Hannon. So the guy from Sons of Anarchy, King Arthur, he's going to be playing Ed. Kind of interesting.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
I don't know how we feel about it. I'm still processing that one, but that got announced this week as well. So with all that, let's get spooky, guys.
All right. So in January of 2020, filmmaker Quentin Tarantino said, "My favorite Netflix series with no competition is The Haunting of Hill House." I think that's kind of cool, especially when you have somebody like Tarantino saying that.
Yeah.
So what is everybody's initial thoughts on the Netflix series The Haunting of Hill House? Who wants to go first?
I loved it. I binge watched it in like 2 days.
Same.
It was just really compact in one little series, one little season. So you don't have to have like season 2. So I enjoyed that I could watch it in a day and not be sick of it if I have to rewatch it again for like say a con or whatnot.
Yeah. Lisa, what'd you think?
I liked it. It wasn't what I expected. I expected a little bit different, but that's okay because I thought it was, I was glad that I could watch it in 2 days. Yeah, I agree with you totally, Karen, because time is a 4-letter word. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised the first time I watched it. It was one of those series where I was like, ooh, Netflix is doing it. I don't know. And this is kind of like the beginning of like Netflix really starting to do their own series, and doing like their original stuff. So I was a little apprehensive on if whether or not it was going to be good or not. And first episode, I was hooked. First episode, I was like, oh, this is good. I can't wait to watch the rest of this. So yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's one of those shows that I'm like, this is really, really, really cool. And I was actually kind of excited that Netflix did it because if this was the level that they were going to be at for like their horror series type of stuff, I was kind of excited to see what else they were going to come up with. How do you guys feel about this being a Netflix series?
I mean, when I heard it was going to be a Netflix series, I was kind of iffy because sometimes it's either hit or miss, and sometimes they like end their series too soon.
Yes.
But
Ah,
when I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this is okay, Netflix. Okay, let's see what you got." And the fact that it was one season, you didn't have to like figure everything out in multiple seasons. That was
Yeah.
compact in one season, made it really watchable for me, and I consume it
Hmm.
rather quickly instead
Yeah.
of having to wait like in 2 years season two comes out.
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Lisa, what did you think?
Oh yeah. I was a little iffy at first because it was a Netflix series, but the one of the characters I liked her in the previous series, you. So I had high hopes for it. I liked it pretty good. It had a good rhythm to it, and I liked the fact that I didn't have to wait 2 years to find out or figure out. And then when it comes out 2 years, I'm like, yeah, I knew that
Yeah.
since I like to solve mysteries. So
Yeah.
Or you wait a year and two. Oh, we canceled it. What?
yeah, like Mike Hunter or
Yeah. No, I totally know what you mean. I kind of like, I mean, this is also the same director who did The Bly House and also did The Fall of Usher. So it's very obvious. It's like, okay, we're taking a book, we're doing a season with a book, and then we're moving on to something different instead
Yeah.
of trying to prolong
right,
something that does not need to be prolonged. I think that's the problem actually with a lot of series that they just like, oh, well, the series is having great success. We should keep telling more and more stories, or we should continue on the plot. And then it loses what we loved about it because they drew it out too long and they took it like way farther than what they needed to take it. When it's like, you should have ended it here. Because
right.
if you ended it here, you would have had a full, complete story instead of, continuing to push on a story that just ended up going nowhere.
You're right.
And
I
so,
mean,
yeah. Mhm.
he did do another series called The Midnight Club, which was geared
Yes.
toward teens. I would love for it to have a season two because there was like a lot of backstory that we didn't get to see.
Was
And
that one was that one based off of a book?
yes,
It was? Okay. I've never heard of that book, so that's
I want to say it was based off of one of R.L. Stein's books, The Midnight
Mhm.
Club. Ah,
Then it's probably one of the very few that I have not seen or read, I should say. Oh, Midnight Mass? No.
no, Midnight Mass is another series that he did was
Yeah.
one show.
Oh, Midnight Club. Here it is.
Yeah, Christopher Pike is one of Christopher Pike's books.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Hey, we'll have to add that one to the list then.
Definitely.
But yeah, I just think overall, as a Netflix series, I think it might be what a lot of us hold our standards to when it comes to Netflix series. Like we sit
Mhm.
there and we go, okay, how's this one going to hold up? Is it going to be like, XYZ? And so I think this is one of the few that it's that benchmark that we want the Netflix series to be like.
Mhm.
Or at least the director, the benchmark for the director is like, hey, Mike Flanagan did it.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that too.
Yep. Well, I mean, even if when you look at Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers said no, this wasn't going to be like an extended thing. Like, actually, I think originally they only wanted it to be like one season, but then
Right.
they're like, no, there's so much more, and so they're like, okay, we can extend it to 4 or 5 seasons. They're like, but after that, no, because there's nothing else to tell. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool that as creators, like they already have that vision in mind of, no, this is the story. I'm not going past the story.
Right.
Yeah.
With that actually being the case, this is an adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel, The Haunting of Hill House. How do we feel about Flanagan's take on it?
I enjoy it. Even though they added characters in, I thoroughly enjoyed the storytelling, enjoyed the actors, I enjoyed the plot, I enjoyed the little Easter eggs here and there. And I wanted more of it, really. I'm glad that it was just one singular season, but at the same time, I wanted more of ghosts, more of the trauma, more of dealing with life and death and family.
Okay. Lisa, what about you? Because you just binged the novel, right?
I did. I will say that compared to the novel, he did all right, but I think he went back and forth too much. I think if he would have stayed in the house a little bit more with the kids, there'd be a little, and then it kind of, you get to know them with their trauma, you know what's wrong. And then, but because they kept going back and forth, I think it kind of, whereas it kind of got rid of some of the spookiness for me. But the book was good because it kept going down and down and down. It wasn't that spooky, but you understood the house more in the book. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, because at the end of the series, which is great, you didn't understand the houses. You understood the house, but not as much as when you listen to the book. But I do like the way that he did a whole bunch of references, because I would be listening to the book and I'd remember some of the lines and go, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Okay. This. And so it did connect it together, but I think I would have liked him to be like Karen said. I'd like to get more of the trauma, more of the little spooky. It's like ghosts to me aren't really scary, except for the one down under the stairs. That kind of creeped me out. But really, one thing that did really bother me, and that's because I'm just sensitive to it, was the kittens. Bless the guys who did the special effects for that. Did a good job. But it really did disturb me a lot. I mean, because they did such a good job. Because I had worked in rescue, so I've seen that. And I'm like, oh, yes, too bad you guys can't see my faces. But yeah.
I like the whole flashback. It's just, I wanted more of, because how long did they stay in the house? Was it like a summer?
Yeah, I think it was a summer. Or it was supposed to be a summer.
Yeah, they didn't really.
It was supposed to be a summer. So they were probably there 4 to 6 weeks at most.
Yeah.
They weren't there for very long.
Yeah, because I wanted to see more of what was happening in the house. I wanted to see more of the house sort of changing them, because you saw the significant change in the mother.
Oh, yeah.
But, the kids weren't being as affected as the mother was because of her ability. Yeah, each kid has their own ability, like their mother, but I wanted to see that progression of that downward spiral a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Flanagan did a really great job respecting the original work. I think he kept true to the tones and the feel and like the pull in the plot when it came to like the novel compared to the show. But I do like how he did a few things. I think, like with you guys, I wish I would have seen the kids in the house a little bit more. But I'm also wondering how much of it was he was actually protecting the real life kids from being traumatized. Because they were young kids. They're not like, teenagers. They were, I think the oldest one was 12 in the actual like filming time. Kids in horror, let's not have to pay for their therapy bills.
Right. That's true.
So I'm wondering if that was probably like a thing to it. But you also have to think, like, in the original story, everybody who's in it is an adult.
Yeah.
There wasn't any kids in the original story. So how much of it was also, okay, what can we get away with us changing the fact that it's kids instead of adults who are going to be in this house? And that's like, I don't know, kind of my thing. I feel like they could have done more, maybe even with the adults talking more about their experience in the house. Because a
Yeah.
lot of it was like feelings or specific events, but that we already saw. It wasn't elaborating on hearing clanging through the halls in the middle of the night. Like they kind of reference it. There was like snapshots of it, but like in the book, that's like a traumatizing event for all the characters, where they're like huddled up and like the one even says like I felt like I was in a completely different place
Right.
while this was happening. And
Yeah.
so you didn't get that with the show as much. And I'm wondering if it is because they did that, what, 20 something year divide.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the aftermath of what happened in the house and their grieving ish process of losing their mother and their dad not telling them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Communication, people.
Right?
Communication.
Like,
Clear,
listen.
honest communication. It fixes a lot of problems.
And then you won't have a story though. Like, we're
True.
communicating.
True.
Like, we're gonna communicate, but this is what happened.
But I just overall I think it was extremely respectful to the original works. And somebody else said it, and I don't remember who, but somebody had basically said that Shirley probably would have liked this take on her
Yeah.
on her work. And to have somebody be able to say that, I think that's kind of cool, especially when you can see so much respect to like the different things that did happen throughout the series.
Mhm. I mean, the movie tried to capture the book, but the series captured it better.
Yeah,
Yes. Agreed.
very much so. Very much
When I'm
so.
talking about the movie, I'm talking about the 1990 version movie called The Haunting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, don't worry, y'all. We will do an episode on that. We'll get to it. I promise. But with actually being kind of true to the story, the story is kind of about grief. And as you mentioned earlier, Cam, they did add two extra characters, and they were both kids in this story. And those kids all represent the different stages of grief. How do we feel about all that?
I mean, it's a really good representation of grief.
Mhm.
One of them I really didn't see as a representation of grief was Shirley's character. She was supposed to be bargaining. I was
No,
like,
she was supposed to be
I don't
anger.
see. She was supposed to be anger.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Steve is denial.
Yeah, we know Steve was denied, straight up
Yeah.
denied everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shirley was anger.
Okay.
Theo was bargaining.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Luke
Makes
was
sense.
depression.
Yeah, because
And then
Nell was
Nell was
acceptance.
acceptance.
Because
Yeah.
she did straight up accept, the fact that she was like her mother.
Mhm.
And she was gonna accept the fact that everything happened was true. I'm gonna go ahead and accept my death.
Mhm.
And maybe if I accept my death, y'all could come to terms with actually what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think it was kind of cool how they all represented different aspects of the grieving cycle. And I think it's also kind of neat that each of them went through stages of coming out of that specific cycle.
Yeah.
Steve had moments of belief and acceptance. Shirley had moments where she was no longer angry. Theo had moments again where there was the acceptance. And Luke's journey is a little harder, but depression's also a little bit harder to go through. And so, he was
It,
able
it, it,
to.
it was him coping with his depression,
Mhm.
with the drug use and trying to get clean, trying to accept the fact that he has a problem. But when, I felt really bad for him because of the fact that he feels like he's a burden to everybody, but he's not a burden. He just needs extra help because growing up, he didn't have his mother. He had his aunt. Wasn't his aunt like the aunt very religious or something? I remember.
I
Um,
can't remember.
because they made brief mentions of the aunt, and I was like, I know you don't want to live with your aunt, but because I know Steven said he didn't want to live with the aunt, but I was like, was
Yeah.
there something wrong with the aunt? What's going on?
If the aunt was based off of one of the other characters from the book, in the book the person was religious. But I think it was supposed to be like, I think in the book the aunt was supposed to be more like Eleanor's sister and
Oh yeah,
family.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think they were religious to a certain point.
Yeah.
But I think it was also just what kid doesn't want to be with their parents who they do love.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
he
he
wanted to
didn't.
be with his dad. He wanted to be with his mom. He didn't want
Yeah.
to be with somebody else.
No kid wanted that.
Yeah.
Even Steven made, the reference like, do we really have to stay with her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
And
they
then-
did a phenomenal job with the casting. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy who played Steven was the first one hired and cast. And then they kind of like filled it out. But I think they did a fantastic job getting people who actually look like they could all be siblings to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah, I mean that's like the whole ordeal is like, do you have the same facial features that people be like, okay, I can see
Yeah.
it. I can see
I,
it. I enjoyed Henry Thomas's appearance because he
Yeah.
was also in other series by Mike Flanagan. He did the Midnight Mass.
He was in Bly Manor too, right?
He's in Bly Manor. I mean, Flanagan has this whole thing of reusing his actors because
Mhm.
he knows what he could get out of them.
Yeah.
He knows what they could do. And
I mean,
actually
even his wife, Katie Siegel.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's good to have that whole repertoire between you and your actors. Like, I know what you got in you. Now bring it up.
And
Only thing I did.
personally, I love it when a director has like a set cast. Like I
Oh,
know
yeah.
when I watch a Wes Anderson film, I know who's going to be in there. I know who's
Exactly.
going to do guest appearances, even if it's uncredited. I'm like, no, that person's already in the film. I already know they are because
Exactly.
it's a Wes Anderson film.
Yeah.
But I love that when you can do that with with a director, where you just automatically know that somebody's in there.
The only thing I did not like was those stupid contacts that they put in Henry Thomas's eyes.
Oh, I know.
Right? Especially when they didn't need to.
Yeah, I was like,
There was no need for him to have the blue eyes. They could have easily made Hutton wear contacts.
Right.
it's
Like,
hard to like cover up dark eyes with something lighter. Lighter eyes with something darker. Yes.
yeah.
You.
But the thing is, I kept noticing one of them was slipping. Of course, that's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with his eyes? He like got some kind of infection or something. So it made it a little more disturbing to watch it. So
Yep.
No, but I loved all the actors. Even the child actors were phenomenal.
Oh my God, the child actors are fantastic. And actually, one of the things that I loved about the child actors, Kate Siegel and her counterpart, who was that? Oh, I'm going to feel so bad that I can't remember her name off the top of my head. McKenna Grace. They actually wrote journals for each other's characters. And I mean, they played the same character, but they did the young and old. But they actually wrote like journal entries of their character and what their character was going through, and they would trade it off with each other so they could read what the other the other version of that character was going through. And I think that was kind of interesting. Like that's not something you would just see happen on a lot of
Right.
different sets.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool. I did love the fact that we had Henry, coming from his ET days.
Oh,
know?
yeah. I was like, it's Henry.
Yeah,
My
look,
crush.
I think-
when I was like, he's said, yay, Henry Thomas. Rawr.
quick grab the Reese's Pieces.
I think I was halfway through The Haunting of Hill House before I realized that that was the kid from ET. For some
Yeah.
reason, it just was not combining in my brain, and I was like, "Why do I know that guy from somewhere? He looks
Exactly.
familiar. Where do I know him from?" Oh, that's it. That's it. That's how I know him.
Yes. It's yeah, when I first saw him on screen, I was like, hey, it's the kid from ET. I was like, it's good to see that you're doing stuff.
But I do think the casting was really, really, really good on this.
It
Uh,
was.
Victoria, who played Nell, this was her first like big gig, like her first like major casting. So I think that's kind of cool that you had somebody who, got to make their career break with this.
Yeah.
But she did a fantastic job. Like, I don't think I could think of anybody else to play that character but her. I think overall the acting was absolutely out of this world. Super
And
fantastic.
I was also surprised to see the actress that played
Played
Mrs.
the mom?
No, Mrs.
Oh, Mrs. Dudley.
I, I know who you're talking about. I
Yeah,
forgot what her name.
I was like, I know you.
Yeah.
And when I saw
Annabeth
her,
Gish.
yes. And then I saw her
Yes.
and I was like, I know you. And because it's good to see like, her career, has continued on, like Henry Thomas
Yeah.
and the other older actors. Because sometimes you're like, what happened to such and such actor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, did they retire? Are they not doing anything? But when I saw her, because I haven't seen her, Annabeth Gish in a long time. But when I saw her in the show, I was like, hey, it's an old friend.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like even with like Timothy Hutton, other than that one like TV show thing, he's kind of been under the radar for quite a while. And then the woman who played the mom, Carla,
Yeah.
she's fantastic. I absolutely love her in almost everything I see her in. But, honestly, like almost everybody in this series is just like a phenomenal actress or actor. I mean, I even like the guy who plays Steven. I think his name is Michael or Mikkel. He was in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So,
That's
like, I loved
so
him
fun.
from there. And like almost everybody, it's like, oh, I loved them in XYZ. Like, there's something else that I've seen them in that I absolutely adored. I think they just knocked it out of the park with the casting.
Yeah. I definitely agree on that.
Leverage. Leverage. That was
Leverage,
my show.
that's it.
Because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, what show was he in? That used to be my jammy jam. That used to be my jammy jam.
Whatever network that was on, like daytime, it wasn't like actually like on air type thing. It was like syndication type deal. Whatever that was on, I think it also showed like Supernatural. It was that, Las Vegas, and there was like one other show. Like I would just like hop on that channel and I knew I was watching that channel for like the next like 3 hours. But let's get back to Haunting of Hill House.
Yep. We digress.
We just went on a fun little happy rabbit trail. Let's get on back. Actually, let's talk about the visuals on the show. I think visually it was gorgeous, but you can tell it is definitely a Flanagan production. He has a
Yeah.
very unique coloring and like the way the set or the way it each scene looks.
Some areas was kind of dark. I was like,
Hmm.
this is
Yeah,
kind of dark. What's going on over there? I was like, I thought I was watching I had to say it like a DC superhero movie where everything was dark and you
yeah,
can't see anything. I was like, that's my only thing. My like visually everything was great, but in some areas it was just so dark that I couldn't. I had to turn off all the lights just to see. Okay, that's what's going on. All right,
yeah.
that's it in the
Yeah.
background.
Well, you know what? I think he wanted us to watch it in the dark. I mean, I saw a Netflix special where he ended up saying something along the lines of like, I want to build a sense of tension and sustain it for as long as possible. So it would make sense that he would want to film his stuff to make you watch it in the dark.
I mean, I don't mind watching in the dark, but when I have to get close to the TV to see what's in the corner over here, I have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But like
Already blind as a bat.
we've already kind of alluded to like the multitude of hidden ghosts. Fun fact for our listeners, if you didn't know this already, Mike Flanagan actually had the costuming department dress up at minimum 4 people as ghosts to have standing in like random spots throughout all of the scenes in the show. And there's over 35. I think there's over 35 ghosts throughout the whole thing that you can find little Easter eggs of. I think that's kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
he thought that far ahead.
I mean, why
I
not?
I
I
found
mean,
16 of them.
Yeah.
it's creepy to have all the ghosts around that, it kind of builds that tension. Oh, there's something wrong with this house.
Mm-hmm.
These people not see it?
Yep.
I see it. I mean, yeah, so
Yeah. Reflections, faces under the stairs in the basement, all the
Under
fun under the bed. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and someone decided to move as a shadow. That freaked me out.
Yeah.
Shadow moving. It's like, no, I did not see that.
Yeah, there was like one of the stone statues, its head also turns.
Yes.
Um, but I think like overall the storytelling visually was done pretty well. Like there was a number of shots that were like full sequences, start to finish is one shot. There's no cut takes, and it's almost choreographed. I know Timothy Hutton a couple of different times said he's like, yeah, no, this like one scene, it took us like, yeah, that scene's only like 6 minutes. He goes, but we choreographed the entire scene so that way they can film it all in one fell swoop. So it's 6 straight minutes of film that you're seeing, and it's one take. It's not like a bunch of different takes like meshed together. And I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays some movies are doing that because it just takes too much time and money just to do multiple takes. So
Yeah.
you actually either have to choreograph it or pray and hope to whatever God you worship is gonna come out looking good.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think Mike kind of has perfected it. I mean, how many of these scenes could you sit there and go, oh, that was one whole segment, and that was like a good 10-15 minute scene. And then that's when you go, oh wow, I can't believe it was shot like that? But yeah, visually I think the show was amazing.
I
Yeah,
loved
I
all the
want
ghosts.
that. I
Were
like
there
the
any
door.
things visually about the show that you guys didn't like, other than it was too dark?
That was it. I mean, like I loved all the ghosts. I love trying to find the ghosts.
Yeah.
There was only one ghost that kind of creeped me out, and that was like the bent neck lady ghost. And then
Which
you
was
find out,
actually Victoria.
which is actually Victoria. It was just that was the only one that creeped me out. I understood, Luke had the tall floating dude following him. I want to know that dude's story because it just kept
Tall
following him.
man?
Like, yeah, the tall man. I
Yeah.
was like, "What is your story, man? You just
He
show
was,
up."
I,
Yeah.
I, I figured it out.
You figured it out?
Yeah. What
What is
did
it?
he get out of Luke's room? And what did he get out of the room?
It
Uh,
was the hat,
it was the hat.
Yeah.
bowler hat. Yeah, but like
Maybe.
who is the tall man? I think that's what she's asking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it was pretty cool though. I
Yeah.
wanted to know more about the little girl, the redheaded girl.
Abigail?
Abigail?
Yeah. Oh,
Why is it everybody is naming the children in horror movies Abigail?
because it's all maybe. I don't know.
But I mean, like, they're in like a lot of horror movies, there's either a doll or a ghost child or something, and it's named Abigail. What is the fascination of the name Abigail?
Well, number one, it sounds old timey,
It
and
is.
it kind of. Have you not met an Abigail that kind of creeps you out?
I used to work for an Abigail who was quite lovely.
Oh, never
My best friend's
mind.
name is my best friend's name is Abigail, and she's pretty cool.
Yeah, I worked for a lady named Abigail, and she was an absolute delight. I actually really loved working for her.
I don't know. Maybe I guess we'll have to do a deep dive on that one.
Definitely.
I mean, it is old timey, so I can understand the old timey factor, but like, why aren't there more ghosts named Margaret?
Or Pearl, or
Yeah. Or
Ethel.
actually,
Ethel.
my name, Shannon, is an old name.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why aren't there more ghosts named Shannon? Oh, I'd like to know. Let's answer these questions. Thank you very
Yes.
much. So obviously we all really like the show, but let's kind of go a little bit deeper though. Um, what kind of significance do we think that this has, this series specifically, for modern adaptations of horror literature? So I know like back in the early 1900s we had the literature era or era of horror. So and there's always like a little resurgence of that every once in a while. We did it with like Hammer films, and like the more gothic era was again based more on the literature side of things. Do we think that this is going to do we think that this show kind of changed the way that we do adaptations of horror literature?
I mean, you have to get the right director to be able to do adaptations of horror literature. Um,
Yes.
Yeah.
because some people could be absolutely fantastic at doing it, Mike Flanagan, and some could be like not so much. But if Mike Flanagan sets the precedence and continues doing what he's doing, this could be like the new resurgent of literary horror. And
Mhm.
Yep.
I am all for it. I
Oh
am
yeah.
all for it.
Same.
Like
100%.
I mean, I know he got the okay. Like Stephen King loved, the two adaptations he did of his work. And
Hmm.
Stephen King like, you could do more, sir.
I was gonna say Stephen King doesn't like any adaptations of his work. So if he's giving you a thumbs up,
Uh,
you take it, you run with it.
exactly.
Like
Because
I'd like to see him do Salem's Lot.
oh, that would be beautiful.
He would probably do it justice.
He
Oh,
probably
that'd be
would.
amazing.
Especially as like a series. Because see, that's the thing with I think King also, his stuff is thick. His stuff is thick. Like you can't do it in like 90 minutes. You
No.
you need you need a couple of hours.
I think Mike Flanagan has like, a foothold in the literary horror, unless somebody comes out and be like, hey, let's do this. I mean, right now he's just the one that I'm like, he did, like I said, he did The Haunting of Hill House, he did The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is like an adaptation of The Turn of the Screw.
Hmm.
And then he did like The Fall of House of Usher.
Which was
So
fantastic. Which that is on our list, y'all. We will do an episode on that one. Don't worry, we got you.
we got you, boo.
Which honestly, like I absolutely loved it. I think because again, it's not exactly like the book, but it has so much respect for it. Do we think this series and or even Mike Flanagan, because this is kind of becoming a We Stand Mike Flanagan episode, do we think that this series holds a place in the history of horror?
Oh, definitely, for sure. I mean, I think it's bringing back a lot of the old elements of horror that we used to have. Not
Mm-hmm.
so jump scares, more of a foreboding and an atmospheric feel, which I think
Mm-hmm.
lends so much to horror
Yeah.
to be like, you know, help you get the feel for it and the tension. I did really like the tension.
Hmm.
That he did a great job of that.
Yeah.
But I think, and he seems to be able to still keep the feel of the literature. Like you had that house that was
Mhm.
old, and you had all the stuff that you would see in that time period, but it was a little modernized. It wasn't modernized. They kept it. They just put lights and plumbing. So
Mhm.
I think he definitely lends to a new, instead of just quick modern things. You actually, he's attributing, how do I say it? He's lending to the atmosphere and stuff with the lighting and the character development, so you can get more engaged in it.
Yeah.
That's just I
Yeah.
really,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I agree. I agree. Karen, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, this is going to be like the go-to for any type of literary horror, literary horror that you want to, what you want to do. You had to sit there and take notes on it, man. You have to do it frame by frame, like what's going on in this frame. Just go slowly through it. Like I would, if they offered like a course on this Haunting of Hill House, I will be there for it. So
Yeah.
yes, this just like the Candyman, this will hold up to time.
Yeah.
This will be everything and anything that you want in horror series.
Yeah. And even with like the technology that he did have in this one, it was very limited. It was what, an
Oh yeah.
iPad, or you might have seen like an iPhone, but it was still very generic type stuff that like 10 years from now, nobody's going to bat an eye at the technology.
No,
Or
no.
20 years from now, people aren't going to bat an eye at the technology. They're going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
works.
yeah.
It's going to definitely stand the test of time. Um, while we were kind of like deciding to do this episode, I did watch a couple of like Netflix behind the scenes featurette type things. And Mike actually said something, and I thought it was pretty cool because it wasn't just like about the show itself, but about horror as a genre. And I thought that was kind of cool. He said this: horror has been changing. It got to a point where the genre was content to just to settle or just to startle people. Now we are seeing audiences are much more sophisticated. In our show, I wanted to go back to when horror was about something much more profound than just being afraid. One of the things I believes is that our lives are just full of ghosts. I think it takes a lot of different forms. It can be regrets, memories, and shame, and grief, and guilt, and all sorts of things. For an audience, it's about forcing them to look at things that are uncomfortable in a safe space the genre creates.
And the show does make you uncomfortable
It
at
does.
times.
Yes.
It really does.
It does.
Uh,
Like how uncomfortable was that scene where Nell came and interrupted his book reading? Like,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah.
like if I was in that audience, I would have been like, "Ooh, I don't want to be here."
But I want to be here.
Like, I want to hear the tea. Like, can I go stand behind the bookshelf though? Because I don't need to be like front row.
But
Right.
also the whole Shirley doing the whole burial procedure on her sister, that made me
Oh,
uncomfortable too.
the preparations.
Preparations, I was like, I don't know if I could do that with my own family if I was, a mortician. That made
I
me
Right.
think I
uncomfortable.
could.
You think you could?
I think I could. But then again, I also wanted to be a coroner for like the longest time. So until
Yeah,
I
but that
realized how many math classes I had to take, and then I was like, peace out, Cub Scouts.
I mean, it was just like, do you really want to see your family member before, or do you
Um,
want to like remember them after when they get all nice and done and pretty? I mean, I understood because that was like the stress. That would have stressed me out. That made me uncomfortable.
I will say this also for my personal beliefs, that's just a body at that point. So even though, yes, it's the body of somebody I loved, their soul isn't there anymore.
Right.
And so I think I would be okay doing it because it would be a way of me honoring that person, and not because of what I'm doing in that moment or like what I'm seeing. It's of who they were when they were
Mm.
alive. So like as soon as they're dead, I'm like able to like, I don't want to say disconnect because I'm not disconnected because you know I still get teary eyed when I think about family members who have passed, but it's the soul portion. It's not the physical portion. If that makes any sense at
I
all.
understand. It's like, but for me, it's like that used to be my X, Y, and Z. I can't. I know their soul's not there. I know
Yeah.
they're in a better place, hopefully, but I can't. I can't.
I mean, that job as a whole is not something that just anybody can do anyways. But you also
No.
have to think about it. For Shirley, that was the whole reason she even got into it was because she wanted to make things look better. And it was
Right.
all because, like in the show, at least, it was, you know, she thought her mom was going to look horrendous. And then she goes and gets there, and the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, no, I made your mom look good again. Like, I
Made her look beautiful.
made her look beautiful." And she saw that. So I think if she hadn't had like that kind of like story plot, having to like go through the traumatizing events with the kittens to traumatizing things with her mom to then seeing, oh, I can make things pretty again. I can
Mhm.
control the outcome or the outlook.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, she wouldn't have had that. She wouldn't have been able to do that.
And I think also adding to that is she probably had some of her dad's, well, I can fix it type of mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She surely did.
She surely did.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
surely her anger was in the fact that she couldn't control things. I mean,
Right.
she was mad at Stephen because he wrote the book, and she's like, "Well, none of us are going to take the money from it," and everybody's like, "Yo, Stephen, like, we'll talk later.
But
We want the money. We
right.
want the money."
Like
And
I will need bills to be paid. I mean,
yeah, I mean, even her husband was like, "Dude, we need the money." Like, you know, but it's all about control. And, you know, not some of it, yeah, is the fixing it, but it's the control factor for her. Because if she can control it, she doesn't have to feel about it.
uh,
If she can control it, she doesn't have to be angry because it's the way she wants it. It's she's got it where she wants it.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another disturbing part was Theodora going to the foster parents' house.
Oh yeah, Mr. Smiley.
Yeah.
Mr. Smiley.
Ugh.
That was so disturbing.
And well, that is what I think is like the nightmare of her power, quote unquote,
Yeah.
is being able to touch something and seeing the worst aspect of it has got to be, there has to be
Night.
like, that's a hell. That's a
Yeah,
hell to
that
have
is
to live
hell.
through.
That is hell to live through. I mean, she had the touch factor. Luke and Elle had the twin thing going on, even though they're
Hmm.
not identical twins, because you hear a lot with identical twins, but
Oh, yeah.
theirs was like
It was on the next level.
it was like on the next level.
I mean, the
And
fact that he felt cold and stiff.
mhm,
Yeah. That was like,
And my personal headcanon, he forever felt cold and stiff.
yeah, I mean, his other half's not there anymore.
Yeah.
His best friend is gone.
Hmm. I honestly do feel like they were almost like one soul that was split in two.
Yeah, that's what I felt too.
so
And she
when
tried to be like the better of the two for the both of them because of the
Mhm.
fact that
He
of
struggled so hard.
he struggled so hard. And then when she finally accepted, accepted everything, he had to like step up and to accept his faults and to love himself
Mhm. Yeah.
the way she loved him.
Hmm. Yeah,
And Steven, I mean, he had the ability. He could
he
see
did.
them. He
He
just
did.
denied it. He always
yeah,
denied it.
Hmm. He
which made
didn't want to see it. He did not want to see it. It was very much a, if I refuse to acknowledge it, it's not there.
But he had to acknowledge it when he saw his dad.
Yeah.
right.
And
Hmm.
that was sad. And it's like, thank you for not for not saying anything. I was like, no.
Yeah. And the thing is I think he always knew, and he really wanted to think it was just kids being kids and kids' imaginations. He didn't want to believe what he saw. Which, honestly, do we blame him?
No.
Do we blame him
But
after seeing all of that?
the house itself was a character,
Oh
really,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
the
Oh,
red
yeah.
room was the heart of the house. It became whatever they needed and wanted.
I mean, Nell even said that the last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, she sat there and said, she goes, this house gave us everything we needed. It was your dance room. It was your tree house. It was your
Whatever.
reading room. You know, it became what we needed it to be. And then somebody, I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody said the only person who didn't get a chance in that reading room or it turning into something for them was the dad.
Yeah.
Because his whole focus was fixing the house.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing else he desired. So until it was to fix that room, he had no need for it. But when he needed to fix that room, it was time for them to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about quickly. Let's just briefly. Mrs. Dudley's child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was.
That was heartbreaking. They tried forever to have a baby. And then there was this miracle child. And Stephen thought it was imaginary friend. At first I thought it was imaginary friend too. When I saw her, I was like, oh, it's imaginary friend. Wait a minute. What did you do, Eleanor? What did you do?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would have stayed with that house too, my baby. I'm sorry.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Honestly, if there were to be another season specifically of Hill House, I would want it to be about all the things that led to the hauntings of that house. Like, where did the tall man come from? Give me Abigail's backstory. I want to hear it all.
And there were a whole ton of ghosts at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
So
where'd they
many.
so many? And I'm like, yeah, their stories. I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah. It's like watching the 13 Ghosts, and you're like, I want to know all their stories.
Mm-hmm. So let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. Lisa, what are your final thoughts and rating?
First I'll give my final thoughts. I thought it was pretty great characters, great set. I really definitely love the practical effects and the minimalization of the technology in there. That was really good to me because it helped with the atmosphere a little bit more because you don't have that cell phone that you can use to run away, I think that's what made it a little bit creepier. But I kind of agree with Karen. I kind of wanted to see more of the I mean, I understand you can only do so much, but I kind of wanted to see more of how the characters were built, like maybe Eleanor a little bit more. And maybe, at least we saw her losing her mind. But the kids, I kind of wanted to see what pushed them even more a little bit. It's just the way I feel. But I'd give it about a 3.5 because of those things. So I give them a 3.5 skulls.
Okay. Karen, what about you?
I thoroughly enjoyed the show, except for the fact that it was just some parts of it was very dark that I had to turn off the lights and get close to the TV to see what's in that corner, what's going on back here. It left me thinking and wanting more, but at the same time, I was satisfied with what I got. Yeah, I want to know more about the ghosts. Like, how did you get trapped in this house? What is up with that skeleton that was in the wall?
Yes.
How did you end up there? Some of the things I did love the fact that they didn't rely on so much technology. Like the only thing they did was use the cell phones to call each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Steven used his stuff to debunk and or prove ghosts were real. Also, there wasn't that much CGI work that I couldn't, stern. And also, I found I'm not sure if this was true, but somebody told me that the scene where
Mm-hmm.
Elle just pops out and just starts screaming. I heard that was not even scripted. That was not supposed to, she was not even supposed to be in the back.
Actually, she was.
Oh,
But
she
she was
was?
supposed to come out at a different time.
Oh.
So I saw Mike, Victoria, and Kate, I think, all talk about the scene. And basically, what Mike pulled Victoria aside and said, okay, in the script, you're supposed to pop out at this point. Don't pop out then. Pop out before that. So that way it's like a true like reaction to it. She did and scared herself. She's like
Oh my God.
she said something along the lines of like I went and I felt like okay, it's time for me to like scream, like pop out and scream. So they knew she was back there. She pops out and screams, but the scream that came out of her startles herself. You can actually catch it at the very like last second before like they switch to like outside of the car. You can see her going, oh, like what just came out of me? Like you can see how she herself was startled by this like pop out and scream. And I wonder how much of that was also like the two people she was with screaming and like actually like freaking out themselves. But
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it was scripted. It just did not happen the way it was supposed to.
James Cameron. He did a James Cameron like with Alien.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Fun fact, it was filmed in Georgia. But I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the cinematography. I enjoyed the visual effects. I give it a 4.5 because of some of the things that kind of was like, you could have done better with that scene. Or his eye contact was slipping. Mm, you kind of tend to nitpick a little bit after watching it, for the third or fourth time. You're like, okay, now I'm nitpicking.
Yeah.
So I get a 4.5.
I think this is a turning point in the way horror is done. And I think it was extremely well done. The amount of respect for the original work that was put into this, the performances all the way around. Yeah, there's a few different things that I think could have been done better. Like, yeah, some of the scenes were a little too dark. The contacts obviously were annoying. Considering we all were like, yeah, yeah, did you see that one time? But overall, I think this series was so well done that I have to give it a 4.8. It's not quite a 5 because yeah, there's some things that could be done better, but it was near perfection. And it wasn't because of just any one individual. It was an overall, everybody did so good at making this series, in my opinion, at least.
Lisa, what was your score again?
She gave it a 3.5.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. I'm the rebel here. I'm
That's
just
okay.
I would have liked to have been a little bit more creeped out. Yeah, the kittens were disturbing. The scene where the beetle came out of her sister's mouth was disturbing. But I would have really liked to get a little bit more. I would have liked a little bit more haunting in the house
Yeah.
than go and
Yeah.
forth so much. I love the character development was great. The
Oh, yeah.
characters did a great job, but and the makeup and everything. But I would have liked to feel. I didn't really feel creeped out. To me, it was just like a ghost story, and the people dealing with their own ghosts, and how the house kind of sucked it all up. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, they should have done like more in the house, really.
Yeah.
But altogether, the score will be 4.3 skulls.
Yeah. I feel like that's a fair representation for it. Alrighty. So, listeners, how do you think Hill House has changed the way the literature is adapted? Do you stand Mike Flanagan the way that we do? Tell us on our social media. so we can continue this conversation. We have our Facebook group, which we would love for you all to be part of. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, and you can subscribe, like, share, and rate on all the different things. Any place you can find podcasts, including YouTube and Spotify. Ladies, where can they find you if they want to see what you're up to? Lisa?
Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and that's all that I can think of right now. Oh yeah, and I have an art group too.
Alrighty. Karen?
Facebook, Threads, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. I think that's it. Because I know I have a lot. I really do.
And you can find me on all the things at Spilled Tea Wine Media Mind. But before we go, we want to thank you, the listener. We really do actually appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. We love the fact that you want to engage with us and listen. Without you, the listener, we wouldn't be here doing this. Actually, we probably still would be doing this, but it's kind of cool to have some other people like listening to us jammer on and on and on. But we really do appreciate your support. And to stay spooky, our lovely ghouls.
And this has been the Spooky and Cookie podcast of Earth Station. Boo.